Yeah, avoid your regular keyword tracking. Look at your brand performance from an overall level, especially from generative AI platforms. If you're not monitoring how you're performing in generative AI now, you'll be falling away in 6 months, 12 months time. You'll be wishing you had done earlier. I'm Andy Mollison, and this is SEO in 2026.
Andy, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
It's that in a world of generative AI, or whatever you want to call it, keyword tracking as we know it is no longer good enough.
Generative AI, or whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there are many different names that we'll experience through SEO in 2026. Okay. So, but keyword tracking is no longer good enough. Why is that?
So I think the way we track performance in SEO historically has been obviously through organic sessions, organic revenue, organic lead generation, and that kind of thing. Obviously that still is very relevant, but it's also been about keyword position tracking as well. So, tracking your individual single keywords or long tail keywords or whatever it is you're tracking. And to an extent, that's still fine. It's still fine, but you can't ignore what's going on. If you're not tracking outside of that, you're not tracking your performance as a whole. And what I mean by that is you've obviously got AI overviews, AI mode, ChatGPT. People are searching in so many different ways now. Tracking keywords is not everything anymore.
So just to clarify, you're saying keywords are so very important, tracking keywords is so very important, but for whatever reason, it's not as big a part of the picture as it used to be.
Exactly that. I mean, at Reflect Digital, we're doing a project called Search Pulse, which is where we're looking at how people are searching over time, because where you've got ChatGPT and so on and other methods of searching, we want to see how people are changing their ways of searching over time and whether they move away from Google or they search in different ways depending on their intent. And I think the intent is the most important part. If someone's looking for a purchase, to make a purchase or make a transaction, they typically do still use a normal Google search or Bing search, whatever it is they use, in a normal kind of keyword fashion. In other words, searching for like blue jeans or something like that, whatever it is you're looking to buy. But when you get to awareness, informational kind of stage of the journey, so before they've made that decision of what they want to buy, people make that journey through many different means, many different search engines, social media, etc. And monitoring that, I think, is the most important part, because actually SEO is obviously generating a lot of traffic, not just for transaction keywords, but a lot of it is from awareness stage as well.
Okay, so you're seeing in general people starting off in more traditional search engines to get a feel for what they should be looking for, and then perhaps gravitating away from that, perhaps using AI search engines and maybe social media, and then maybe being aware of the brand from there and perhaps directly visiting the website using a brand search after that.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, I mean, when you look at sort of fashion or holiday type searches where someone's looking for inspiration, we're finding that people are going on social media more often than not, say TikTok or something like that, to look for inspiration of, what to wear for whatever it is you're going out for, or where to visit next that's got these particular things in mind. And it's once they've narrowed down that information through searching on either ChatGPT, TikTok, etc. People sometimes do search on ChatGPT or other equivalents to give them things like holiday ideas. Once they've narrowed that down, then they'll come back to Google and make that traditional keyword search that we're used to tracking. But it's the bit beforehand. That's the hard part to track, but I think it's super important.
And is that different for every business? Because every business has a slightly different audience and is in a different sector, and you don't necessarily predict that? Or do you actually start from a perspective of, well, this website is operating in this country and it's in this particular sector, so it's likely that consumers probably have this kind of route beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to totally depend on your audience. So we have a couple of clients that are in the travel sector, and for sure, they need to be monitoring TikTok, social media, etc. On the other hand, if you're in, say, financial sector, probably that's going to be way not necessary, because people aren't going to be searching for financial advice on TikTok, for example. But they might be searching for financial advice on ChatGPT, maybe more of a bigger question and asking for advice and information of where do I go for this, or what do I do with this particular financial situation. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing doing your research into who your audience is and what they're searching on. And then it's about monitoring your presence in each of those platforms.
Okay, so you start off with a hypothesis of perhaps where the audience may be likely to be based upon the vertical, but it's not necessarily going to be the case. You mentioned doing your own research. What does doing your own research mean to actually, I guess, put some meat on the bones in terms of establishing where that audience is definitively residing?
I think speak to your customers first and foremost, whether that be follow-up communication after a purchase or, a survey on website exit or whatever it might be. Ask people, how did they find you? I think there's no getting away from, real customer user data is the most truthful thing you can get. And sometimes in terms of if they've made a search on an AI result and then come back to your website through typing your domain name into the browser, you're never going to get that information without asking the question. Something that we do is we perform surveys. So you could survey, a specific set of people in your particular niche, just to find out that sort of information too, if you don't have enough of a customer base to go and make those kind of inroads. So I think it's a couple of options, but yeah, just ask the question. People are happy to share their information if you ask them.
Okay, so the user journey is getting more convoluted. What does this mean from a reporting perspective? How do you report in presence, for instance, in AI overviews, ChatGPT and social media, or do you even bother to incorporate that as part of your reporting?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. One is reporting on AI overviews, ChatGPT, etc. is totally doable. There's lots of tools at the moment that are doing that. Some of them are really expensive, so I think do your research because there's a lot out there and a lot of new platforms coming up. I think every single day there's pretty much a new platform that's coming up that can track your presence in something. I think the most important part is when you're tracking, it's not about tracking your domain name. That's important because let's say, let's search what's the best shoe brand. And if you're Adidas or Nike, you want to be showing up in that result. Of course you do. But it might not be your brand domain name that's being referenced in that search result. It might be a reviews website that was mentioned in that AI overview or in ChatGPT. So what you need to be doing is tracking your brand name mentions as opposed to your brand website mentions, if that kind of makes sense.
And how do you actually tie that back to ROI? Because it's easier from an organic search perspective to say, this is my generic keywords search that resulted in this visitor, this X amount of dwell time, or this action that they took on the website. But if you're losing a lot of that user journey, do you try and tie back, mention citations, share of voice as having some kind of ROI from an organic search success perspective?
That's the very tricky part, especially at the moment. Obviously, at the moment, we've got AI overviews being a really present thing. Google's not even giving information about how many impressions or clicks we're getting from AI overviews specifically. You can't filter that down in any way, which is frustrating. Hopefully in the future, maybe by the time this gets released, maybe they'll be out and be there. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I think the hard part is obviously translating awareness stage traffic back to transactional performance. But I think it's about getting people on board in your business or with your clients or whatever about the importance of that stage of the journey. So if you're used to reporting on last click attribution, for example, where you do only report on this click generated a transaction, think about how you can change your internal reporting to also be about first click attribution or multi-click attribution, where organic has been responsible for a conversion at any point of its journey. So for example, if someone's come in through a paid ad and then gone back a few days later through an organic search, and then a few days later they finally convert via direct, you still need to make the point to your team that organic was responsible at the middle part of that journey towards the conversion at the very end. And hopefully that will help you demonstrate the importance of the awareness stage level of performance as well.
And you've also talked about using tagging prompts too. So how do you go about doing that, and what benefit does that provide?
Yeah, so if we're tracking AI overviews or ChatGPT or whatever it might be, you're going to be wanting to track a lot of different prompts. And prompts are obviously basically a type of keyword, really, be the question that you want to track. So it might be that example we had earlier of what's the best shoe brand. That's a really super generic example. You want to have some much more niche examples for your business. But you're going to have a range of different prompts that you want to report on. You probably also, as a business, probably have different products or different services. that you can tag or would want to tag in some way. So as much as it's a good idea to give your visibility or performance in AI overviews for your website generally, I think also, like you would do for keywords, tag them, group them in some way so that you can report to your team and say, actually, for this product, we're doing really well, but for that product, we're not doing so well. And that way, at least you can use some information from that reporting as well.
And what software are we talking about for doing the reporting? Are we just talking about GA4?
No, so there's lots of different platforms available. Some that we've looked at are, well, try and not give too many recommendations here, but Peak is very good. Peak.ai is a very good tool at the moment. I'd say by the time this gets released, probably this information will be completely outdated and there'll be something amazing that's on the market now. Profound is good as well. SEMrush have quite a good platform as well for it as well. But it's really about, it's a platform that's basically doing the searches for you. It's going to search a prompt on ChatGPT or whatever it is that you're tracking and report back on what it saw on that day. And it will repeat that search every single day and aggregate that data for you. So yeah, lots of platforms, and it's then about how you utilize that data basically.
And talking about utilizing data, it's all very well having lots of brand mentions, but if they're not necessarily positive, that may not be a good thing. So how do you conduct sentiment analysis and what do you do with that data?
Yeah, I think that's really important too, is we've had lots of clients going, well, how many mentions have we got in AI overviews? How many times are we listed there? I mean, it could be as many as you want it to be. But if all of those are all saying, oh, this is a terrible brand, don't buy from here because customer feedback is this, that, and the other, you need to, have that information to hand. So going back to the point earlier about tagging, if you can see that sentiment for one product is generally very positive, but your other product is generally poor, you could use the reporting to go, okay, well, why does AI say that our product is poor? Where's it getting that information from? Is it from customer reviews? Is it from a product review somebody did? And if it is, then how can you influence that? Is it just that you need to improve the product, or do you need to do some positive PR and try and change that narrative? So monitoring sentiment analysis is really, really important in this too, because just having the number of mentions is not what you want.
Are you able to share any tool that you use for that?
Again, a lot of those tools have that sentiment analysis. Some do, some don't. So if you're looking at monitoring your performance on AI overviews or otherwise, make sure they do have sentiment analysis because it will really allow you to dig deeper into your data.
And is it possible to benchmark how you're doing against competitors as well? Because obviously a lot of these phrases, these long tail type questions that are used in tools like ChatGPT aren't necessarily searched or have been searched before. So how do you benchmark your performance against competitors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So same as you would do with keyword tracking, consider who your competitors are going to be, and again, track those into the tool that you're going to use. You can then monitor that over time. So I think my recommendation will be track that as soon as you can, because the longer you've got the historic data, the more you can do with that information. But it's the same as any other platform. If you can, once you put in those competitors, you can then monitor against their visibility over time, but also their sentiment over time, and also their visibility in different platforms as well. So you might see better performance in ChatGPT than in AI overviews, for example, or maybe vice versa for a competitor. So it's about, where is my competitor getting positive sentiment and positive reviews and positive mentions that we're not? So definitely, monitoring competitors is a key point of it too.
Okay, and you're talking about monitor that over time. So do you use Looker Studio, or do you use some other software in order to be able to do that? And also, how does that help to actually lead into making better quarterly or regular SEO strategy decisions? Yeah.
It depends on how you want to visualize it in terms of reporting. We do use Looker Studio so that we can, brand it properly from our side, bearing in mind, we're a digital agency. We want to provide a good experience for our customers. So we want to provide them that information in an easy to use dashboard. That said, a lot of the tools do allow you to see good visuals over time in the platforms themselves. So it's whatever you're happy with. But in terms of using the information, it's about drilling down into the detail. And that's where you need to find a reporting solution that's good for you. But in terms of the detail, it's like, it'll give you information, say, this brand is mentioned in this article, and this article is cited 1,000 times across this many different prompts. So maybe if it's that, what's the best shoe brand example, maybe there's a particular article that's really powerful because it's in a really strong domain written by a really influential author who says this is the best footwear you can get. And maybe that's where it's getting its information from. And it's where if your brand isn't in that article, well, then you need to find a way to get into there to be cited and referenced from that article because AI is using it. And that's what the reporting would help you to do.
And in terms of that strategy part of the question, do you like to sit down with your clients on a quarterly basis to actually review and make a content strategy, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. It is going into the detail, but it's more of a branding exercise or a digital PR exercise, really. I think SEO is sort of blurring into the lines of being between SEO and digital PR with this kind of performance and this kind of tracking that's required. It's not just a case of you can give that link to your client and say, well, you need to go and reach out to that publication now and ask them to put your name in it because maybe it's not suitable, maybe it's not relevant. Maybe you need to come up with a different strategy to approach that person with, or the publisher with some kind of other information or some kind of takeaway that means they're going to go, oh, actually, I need to rewrite this article based on the information you've given me, or I'm going to publish something else, a new version of the article because of what you've given me. So I think there's an exercise to be taken with your client or your brand team or your PR team about how you can position yourself to be referenceable in those kind of articles.
Andy, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
My key takeaway is, avoid your regular keyword tracking. Look at your brand performance from an overall level, especially from generative AI platforms. If you're not monitoring how you're performing in generative AI now, you'll be falling away in 6 months, 12 months' time. You'll be wishing you had done earlier.
Andy Mollison is Head of SEO at Reflect Digital. Find out more at reflectdigital.co.uk. Andy, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you very much.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.